Battle of Saint-Mihiel was a battle fought in the First World War. It was on the dates of September 12th to September 16th, 1918. This was the first major U.S. involved offensive in the First World War. It consisted of about 550,000 U.S. troops and about 110,000 French troops, all under the command of General John J. Pershing of the United States, and these were against German positions. So during the First World War, once the U.S. became involved, the French and the British wanted U.S. troops under their command. General John J. Pershing of the AEF, American Expeditionary Forces, did not agree with this one little bit. He wanted U.S. troops under U.S. command. That's the way he viewed it as right. So despite attempts by the French and British to integrate U.S. troops into their own decimated ranks, the American First Army was organized on June 24th, 1918. It formed up west of Saint-Mihiel, a bulge in the Allied lines 25 miles wide, 15 miles deep, which the Germans had occupied for 4 years. The first test of the American Army was to eliminate the bulge in the line. General John Pershing thought a successful Allied attack in the region of Saint-Mihiel, Metz, and Verdun, which was another major battle prior to this, would have a significant effect on the German army. General Pershing also was aware that the area's terrain setting first dictated the restricted rail and road communications into Verdun. Restrictions had been imposed by the German attack during the Battle of Friedrichshain, been cleared, and that a continuation of the attack to capture German railroad center at Metz would be a devastating blow to the German army. The Weather Corps stated, and this is a direct quote, "Visibility, heavy driving wind and rain during parts of day and night. Roads very muddy." So obviously this would pose a challenge to the Americans when the order to advance was given. In some parts of the road, the men were almost knee-deep in mud and water. And this is about after 5 days of rain. So we have another map here showing the offensive moving in. The maps are similar, but they show different views. So that's why I brought these out. So similar, but different details. So if we want a simple look, we have this one. If you want a little bit more complex look of how different corps drove in, this would be it. Many of the tanks were wrecked by water leaking into their engines, while others got stuck in mud flows. Some of the infantrymen developed early stages of trench foot, even before trenches were dug, as a matter of fact. So we have our lines here. At the end of the video, I will post pictures of these, or add these to the video, that will have better lighting. This way, any of y'all that would like to look the maps in better detail will be able to do so. I thought it was fitting to have actual lanterns out while looking at the maps. A little bit more on an in-depth map showing different points that were used in the strategy of the offensive. And in this attack, it is an interesting fact that the Allies mobilized 1,481 aircraft to provide superiority for the ground troops. And naturally, this is not World War II. The aircraft were not very well suited for battles. They were altered, so they were more adaptive to combat by this later stage of the war, but they were not by any means incredibly effective as they would be during World War II. I mean, think about it. In the beginning of the war, pilots were shooting at each other with pistols. That's what they did. So, continuing on, the Lieutenant Colonel George S. Patton had been in the Army for 9 years, Brigadier General Douglas MacArthur for 15, and the two West Pointers at the beginning of this offensive met. And it was an interesting meeting. Here's a picture of Lieutenant Colonel George S. Patton. In World War II would be General George S. Patton. So as the US led the offensive, they had all their artillery guns firing upon the German positions. The tanks were moving forward under General Patton, a lot of the infantry going forward under Douglas MacArthur. Patton was heading north to the town of SA. So if we look at our different maps, I forgot which one had that, but it's on here somewhere. He's heading northwest of the town of SA. MacArthur is making his way north through the Sonora Woods. Near the same place, halfway between the roads, in one of these little towns, there was a farmhouse, and Patton spotted MacArthur on a small hill and walked over to him. It was at this moment a German artillery barrage started commencing, a walking barrage. And what this does, if we want to just use this on a larger scale, a walking barrage would be, here would be the German lines. So I want to create these here. So just so we have our German lines here, they would be walking their artillery this way. And so it's called walking artillery because each firing moves it closer towards the enemy, and your own troops can walk behind it, literally walk behind it, and the artillery go over them. They can walk behind it and they will be advanced. They're almost screened, not smoke screen necessarily. Could be used, but what it's actually doing is destroying enemy positions on the way towards your enemy, but your troops can also walk behind it. So it's somewhat a screen, but also a destructive artillery barrage in close support to your infantry. So a German walking barrage was coming down on them. It was stated that they just stood there, and this is quite interesting. While everyone else was running for cover, Lieutenant Colonel George S. Patton was just standing there along with MacArthur. According to Patton's account, which he wrote 4 days after the encounter, I met General MacArthur commanding a brigade. He was walking about too. I joined him, and the creeping barrage came along towards us, but is very thin and not dangerous. I think each one wanted to leave, but each hated to say so, so we let it come over us. We stood and talked, but neither was much interested in what the other said, as we could not get our minds off the shells. So Patton wrote this as part of a 6-page letter to his wife. So he did state that he and MacArthur were the only two men that did not seek shelter from the barrage. MacArthur's memoirs did portray this somewhat, but it was not as detailed. I believe there was only 2 lines, so I did not involve those in this. Personally, I think that's quite cool because we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. Cavalry, which Patton was a part of, and he used cavalry tactics with his tanks, but we'll be getting into that in a moment. A hallmark of the battle was Patton's deployment of unsupported tank platoons in a cavalry-style attack. Outside the village of Saint-Mihiel, on the 13th of September, the 326th Battalion was southwest of Saint-Mihiel, where they were going to link with the enveloping units of General Samuel D. Rockenbach. However, an impatient Colonel Patton did not wait for the meeting. Instead, he sent a patrol of 3 tanks and 5 dismounted soldiers toward the hamlet Toul to keep contact with the enemy. 30 minutes later, the patrol was attacked by a force estimated to be at least a battalion of infantry accompanied by a battery of 77mm guns. Colonel Patton reacted to the fluid situation by sending defenders of a platoon of 5 tanks. The tanks joined into the fray, and without infantry support, drove the Germans about 6 miles to the outskirts of Saint-Mihiel. During the running battle, tankers killed or put into flight at least a dozen machine gun crews and captured 4 77mm cannons. Thus, Patton responded to the fluid situation by aggressively committing his unsupported tanks further. And this cavalry-style attack is what he was used to because he was part of the cavalry. He was also then designated to the experimental tank corps because this was brand new. World War I, they did not have experience with tanks. This was all brand new, especially U.S. tanks in the involvement of the war. An interesting fact, there's documentation of Patton being injured while standing on top of tanks. He would never be in a tank. He would be on top of the tank. So he would be riding on the top, sometimes standing behind the turret. And he was injured from, I believe at this point it was artillery. He was injured, not terribly severe, but it was a fairly horrendous wound that he got from the accounts I was reading. And he would not leave the battle until his next in line officer, I forget the rank of the officer, he would not leave the battle until he informed him of the situation. So upon accounts that I was able to read about, he was lying on the back until his next in line was informed of the situation and was taking over. Then Patton got off the battlefield. And I may be butchering this quote, but Patton said at some point, I don't recall which war, if it was during peacetime, that no commander should fail his objective unless he is severely wounded or killed. And somewhat paraphrasing, but I believe that's a fairly close account as to what he said. So one reason for the Americans' forces' success at Saint-Mihiel was General Pershing's thoroughly detailed operations order. Pershing's operation included detailed plans for penetrating German trenches using a combined arms approach to warfare. Another reason was the audacity of small unit commanders on the battlefield. Unlike other officers who commanded their soldiers from the rear, Colonel George Patton, Brigadier General Douglas MacArthur, and their subordinates, there's the word I was looking for, would lead their men from the front lines. They believed a commander's personal control of the situation would help ease the chaos of the battlefield. The AEF would take a minimum of 15,000 German prisoners at a cost of 7,000 casualties. During my research, there was very little information about German casualties. So during all this, I don't know where they recorded the German casualties. I was able to find one figure of 4,500 German casualties, but over the past few weeks, I've not been able to find anything else. It may be in plain sight, but during all this, it seems hard to imagine just 4,500 casualties on the German army's side. And I'm still slightly confused. If there's any update to that, I will add it in the description. But as far as I can find, I can't find any other statistic other than that. There was another variation of the U.S. casualties at 8,600, and that was brought in part by the U.S. Medical Corps of the AEF, but it differs from the official record. So I don't know if there was troops from a different battle being brought into the same medical office and it was all being confused. I don't know, just speculation there. But this was the first major U.S.-led offensive in World War I, and it proved to be a great success. The statistics I have do not show it to be as such, but from what I've read, this German army had many more casualties, and it does appear to be a greater success in light of that. But thought y'all would really like the statistics and the history behind this. Of course, gotta have lanterns behind it because that makes it look more real. I will post or add on to the end of this video some of these maps with more light on them, but it's just more fitting to have them in lantern light. So here are pictures of the maps in better light than just lanterns. So if any of y'all would like to pause the video to have a better look at the maps, go ahead and do so. They'll be on for about, ranging from a few seconds to about 15 seconds, approximately. I really like these maps. They look really cool. They're similar to ones my best friend got me, as some of y'all have seen from a prior video in this playlist. There will be more history videos coming down the line, from different battles to different little pieces of history. I think y'all will enjoy this playlist. It's going to be in addition to the other videos. I'm going to try and stagger them, so it'll go from the different playlists that we have going right now. We'll have welding, woodworking, history, and making some fun videos along the way with all that good stuff. So, going to keep it interesting and enjoyable for y'all. There's a lot of fun researching all this. I was doing a lot of research for the past few weeks, trying to get a build up to this, posting it on the last night of the battle. I'm just really fascinated by all this history. I love U.S. history, U.S. military history, and military history in general. Always loved the maps along with it. They're just always been fascinating to me ever since I was a kid. Just found them to be very intriguing. So we have the last of the maps here. It's very interesting. Very few people realize that General Patton served during World War I as Lieutenant Colonel Patton. He did invent the design of the Patton sword for the U.S. cavalry. Very few people know that. He was, as mentioned earlier in the video, one of the pioneers with commanding tanks. It was experimental during World War I, and he took charge of it. It's very interesting doing research and finding out all these things. I knew the basics of some of it, but I found much more details during my research for this battle. And I've seen the movie Patton about 1,000 times. Of course, love that. Should be a standard for kids nowadays, in my opinion. Very inspirational the way he did things. So we will have more videos like this coming up in the future. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. If you have friends that would like to see videos such as this, please share it with them. And let me know what you all think of the video. I'm very curious to hear y'all's thoughts. So go ahead and put that down in the comment section. I'm very interested to hear what you'd like to see more in some of these history videos, along with ways it can be improved. I know there's plenty of ways to improve these videos. I just wanted to start getting some out there. So they may be a little rough around the edges, but they will be improving. I just wanted to get content out there to share my passion about history and U.S. military history, because I like spreading that around. It's very fun for me to do. So yes, the videos will improve. Along with the improvement of the videos, I hope you all do enjoy them. And we're going to be getting much more content out in the future. It's just getting the time to create the videos, because all these videos do take time to create. And it's just trying to plan the videos out, along with research and getting everything so it's going back and forth between different playlists. Keep it interesting for y'all. So we will have much more coming up in the future, and I look forward to sharing all these different topics of interest that I have with all of you. And I look forward to hearing what y'all have to say in the comments, and we'll see y'all in the next one.